Thank you for everyone for coming along to today's workshop. So we'll get started. Just to introduce myself, I'm Suzanne Gibbon. I work for Groundwork London along with my colleague Jenny Dunn. We are a social and environmental charity that works with individuals and communities to improve their environment and support greener living and working across the whole of London. We're working alongside Cross River Partnerships today to deliver this workshop as part of the Clean Air Villages project. So I'd like to introduce Kate, who's from Cross River Partnerships, and she'll tell you a bit more.
Hi everyone, thank you. So I'm Kate, a project manager at Cross River Partnership. So CRP is a public-private partnership, and Westminster City Council is our governing body. We're also a not-for-profit organisation like Groundwork. So we were actually set up 26 years ago to project manage the building of the Millennium Bridge. And since then, we've gone on to deliver work across London that makes it a nicer place to live, work and visit. So we're a membership organisation, and our partners are made up of the public and private sector, which includes 9 local authorities, 17 business organisations and 6 strategic agencies such as Transport for London and the Greater London Authority. So as you can see from the slide, CRP is currently delivering a range of projects across London, and the Clean Air Villages 3 project is why we're here today. So next slide, please. Thank you. So CAV3, Clean Air Villages 3, is a DEFRA-funded air quality project. And we are delivering this with 16 partners, as you can see, so 12 local authorities and 4 business improvement districts. So the aim of the one-year project is to engage with businesses, communities and hospitals in 16 air quality focus areas. So these are areas that have been identified because they have high levels of pollution and high footfall. And we call them villages because every area has its own local characteristics and then therefore requires a certain element of tailored solutions to the air quality problem. So this is a behaviour change project, and CRP implements a range of solutions and schemes on both the local level in these areas, but also across all of the areas too. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just to give you a little flavour of some of the activities that we work on across Clean Air Villages, but these are not limited to. So air quality monitoring and the production of clean air routes, a bit more on that later. We've conducted traffic monitoring studies. We've been using vehicle telematics monitoring devices for businesses who are considering switching to electric vehicle. We offer tailored one-to-one advice and guidance to businesses and organisations that work or operate in these village areas. We've also produced a local directory that lists businesses that deliver using zero or ultra-low emission means, so by foot, by cargo bike, by electric vehicle, that kind of thing. And we've also been running a series of live shares or online webinars, and these have had presentations from industry professionals and discussions about air quality. And plus we're also doing these active and sustainable travel workshops in collaboration with Groundwork. There's much, much more, but I will leave it there, so thank you.
Thank you, Kate. That's really great. So we really do hope you find this workshop useful and it motivates you to become more active. Looking at the polls at the start, it's great that none of you resort to a car at first time round. But just to give you more of an in-depth of why you should be choosing active travel, what active travel means, and sort of to get you started and more confident on a bike. So let me start off. So what is active travel? Active travel means getting from A to B using your own energy, whether that's by walking, jogging, cycling, wheeling, or even rollerblading. And there's loads of reasons why you should start choosing active travel. And one of the key reasons is air pollution. So air pollution is the release of particulate matter, such as soot, dust, small droplets of liquid, and gases like carbon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen monoxide. And these impact the environment negatively and cause huge problems to human health. Road transport is one of the largest contributors to air pollution. And in London alone, air pollution contributes to around 9,400 early deaths a year and causes various health problems such as asthma and others. With many places in London actually in illegal limits at times during the year, So choosing active travel rather than a car helps to reduce the emissions, and so creates a nicer, cleaner and safer local environment for people to live and work in. Next slide, Jenny. Sorry. So I mentioned the 9,400 early deaths in London alone. So on the screen you can see UK as a whole, what air pollution contributes to. So it's a real issue that we've got to tackle in the UK. A recent research study completed by King's College University as part of the Healthy Air campaign actually found that people in cars are exposed to up to 6 times more air pollution than someone cycling the same route or walking on a parallel street, but leaving from the same destination, same starting point and getting to the same destination. And this is because the pollution gets trapped inside the car with nowhere else to go. So as you can see on the graph, the blues and greens are the cycling and walking. So you're actually exposed to quite low levels of pollution because you're moving through, getting fresh air. Whereas the red is when you're sitting in a car and the air pollution can come in, but it can't leave. If you are interested in this study, there's more information about it on the e-leaflet that we'll email you after the workshop. So just a food for thought to consider. The next time you're out and about, have a look at how many cars are on the road and how many only have one person in it. And just consider what environmental and health impacts this is having.
Great, thanks, Suzanne. So as well as kind of air pollution health, active travel also has kind of lots of benefits for your kind of mobility and you're kind of getting lots of exercise. So as some of you know from the beginning of the workshop with the polls, adults are recommended to get 2.5 hours of kind of physical activity a week. And active travel makes that kind of much easier to kind of fit within your existing routine. I'm sure kind of many of you are working from home at the moment, but in the future, this could be kind of walking to work, cycling to work, taking your scooter on the school run, things like that. And the average commute in London is about 5 miles or less, which can actually just be cycled in 30 minutes. So adding exercise into your daily life reduces the risk of lots of health issues like heart disease and increases your mental health and well-being as it reduces stress and anxiety. And in the first lockdown, we saw that kind of car use went down drastically, and as a kind of result, air quality in London and around the world kind of vastly improved, although temporarily. And now we're seeing lots of kind of car use again because of the pandemic. But as Suzanne kind of explained, you're actually kind of safer outside of the car because the air can move around more. And also kind of exercise reduces the kind of inflammation that's caused in your body by air pollution. So active travel really is kind of the healthier choice, and it's being made easier by kind of these initiatives like widening footpaths and cycle lanes. So if you've been hesitant before, now really is the time to kind of get out there on your bike, so you kind of feel more confident when we're kind of going back into commuting and things.
So another reason why you should start choosing active travel is that it's a more reliable option. So relying on active travel means you can leave the house at any time without worrying about missing a train or bus or getting stuck in traffic. And it can also get you from A to B faster than driving. And as we know, there's so much time in London wasted being stuck in traffic. And another huge upside of active travel is that it can save you quite a substantial amount of money on petrol if you would normally drive, public transport, but also because you're regularly being active, you won't need to get a gym membership. So an interesting study comparing the cost of commuting 4 miles in London for over sort of a work year shows that compared to other forms of transport, active travel can save you a lot of money for a similar time commute. So if you look at the table and look at the cycling and the underground time, they're both 25 minutes, but if you look at the cost, you could save over £1,000 if you cycle to work rather than getting the underground for those 4 miles. And the table also shows the sort of carbon footprint of your commute. So that's also worth considering in future when we do start commuting again. So throughout this workshop, I hope you start seeing that active travel doesn't have to be difficult or challenging, or you don't have to suddenly become a hardcore enthusiast. It just takes some small steps, you know, to start. Small steps, and the first step, of course, is coming along to this workshop.
So active travel is also good for businesses. A report written by Living Streets found that people who travel to shops on foot or bike actually spend more money, they spend more time in the businesses in that area compared to people who drive. So reducing road traffic and making streets friendlier to shoppers meant that retail sales increased by up to 30% in the study. This was also seen in Walthamstow, where they restricted the road traffic and saw a 43% increase in footfall. So more time to spend in shops and less time kind of worrying about traffic. During the pandemic, as kind of the outdoor space available to businesses was increased to allow for kind of social distancing measures, customers and businesses benefited alike. And active travel also reduces absenteeism in the workplace. So a YouGov study found users of kind of national cycle network took half as many sick days compared to the average UK worker. So lots of benefits for individuals and the workplace alike. So now I'm going to introduce Vanessa Hammock, who's our cycle instructor, to run the next part of the workshop. She's worked for Cycle Confident and the Bike Project, and is an all-round expert.
Well, I don't know about that, and it sounds like we've been people who cycle regularly. Anyway, so that's really great. So
thanks, Vanessa.
No problem. Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, so let's get started with a true or false quiz. So I've got my chat open, so you can respond in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and shout out the answer. First person wins. True or false? The Queen can ride a bike. Don't be shy and don't overthink it. What do you reckon?
True.
True. It is true. We've gone to the next slide. Thank you, Ellen, as well. Excellent. Yes, it is true. The Queen can ride a bike, as can many members of the royal family. True or false? If you want to ride a cycle, you can try before you buy. Do you think that's true or false? True. Yes. Emily in my chat box has just said it is true, and Ellen as well. Thank you so much. It is. So it really depends what borough you're in. Personally, I can go to Pedal My Wheels, which do operate in a lot of boroughs. You can go on their website and see the number of boroughs that they operate in, and you can hire bikes for between £20 to £50 per month. But they also do a social prescribing scheme, so people can get bikes for free. Health workers can get access to Brompton bicycles for free from Wheels for Heroes. NHS workers can get free Santander bike access, and it's only £2 for 24 hours access to a Santander bike for rides that are under 30 minutes. So if you are thinking of trying cycling, or if you're trying to encourage somebody else to begin cycling, there are lots of routes. And what I would recommend is checking your social media connections in your local area. So it's always a good idea to look on your council website, look on local Facebook pages, just type the name of your area and cycling or bicycle into Facebook, into Twitter. And there are just so many service providers who, so you can begin cycling for free. Okay, next question. It is illegal to ride with more than one person on a cycle. True or false?
False.
It actually, yeah, we've had a mixture of answers. It actually really depends on the cycle. As you can see, you can get cargo bikes that you can take a family in. You can, of course, get tandems. My dad actually built an 8-man tandem. I don't recommend that, but it really all depends on the cycle. So it can be a much better option for families than you might think, and you can get some fantastic different trailers. There are loads and loads of different options, but you definitely can cycle with more than one person, as long as there's somewhere for you all to go. you can bring your bike with you on the train. True or false? You can bring your bike with you on the train. True. Yes, depends on the time. Absolutely. That's what I've gone for. True, but certain hours. Thank you, Ross. And true, true-ish is what I've concluded, because you normally cannot carry a bicycle between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. on weekdays. That's the standard kind of guidelines that I've come across. If you're going further afield, you can often reserve a space for your bicycle. So Great Western Railways, for example, have lovely bike pods. I've taken bicycles up to Edinburgh. The tube, generally you can't take a bicycle on, but some of them you can. And you can take a foldable bike like a Brompton most of the time on most trains. So although it can be a restriction, it is worth actually looking at when you can take a bike, because it definitely can make it more possible to go on journeys and to go cycling in new areas. So it's really worth considering. Okay, next question. True or false? You can get cycling lessons from a professional instructor for free.
True.
True, brilliant. It is true. I actually didn't even learn this until I became a cycling instructor. All through LA. I'm not sure what LA is an abbreviation for, but I'm sure that is that London Authority or local authority? Yes. So again, the best way to do it is just type in free cycling lessons for whoever you want them for, whether you want them for your whole family, if you want them for your children, if you want them for yourself. They normally come at different levels. You can get them to just teach you how to cycle if you've never cycled before. Basic road skills, so that would be things like signalling, just understanding how to use the road, or the advanced urban skills. So this might be, for example, if you wanted to start commuting to work, but you knew you were going through very busy areas, roundabouts, things like that you didn't know how to handle, a cycling instructor will go and do the route, plan you out a really nice route, and then we'll come and do it with you a couple of times, actually come on your commute with you at the time that you're going to work, so that you're not on your own and so that you can iron out any problems. And it's free. Of course, it's not available right now in the lockdown. It was actually only in January that this stopped being available. It was available for the rest of the lockdown. So I think it probably will come back soon. It will be one of the first things to come back as we leave this phase of the lockdown. In the meantime, if you go on the London cycling campaign, they can join you up with a cycle buddy who can, there'll be someone who lives in your area, and they can work with you over the phone or online and just explain a little bit about cycling in your area. I really recommend the Cyclecraft Handbook. That's what cycling instructors kind of use. It's a bit like the driving manual for car drivers. It's just the basis of everything, like the highway code, but all for cycling. And it's just such a nice reference if you just want to double check anything local in your area. And also if you go on the Sustrans website, they've got the National Cycle Network. You can basically just look at all of these amazing different routes and find out what's near you, and it will be a really quiet route that's normally very attractive as well. But you can get cycle lessons for free, not right now, but hopefully they will come back very, very soon. Okay, next question. True or false? You need to own a secure storage space before you can get a cycle. It's a puzzler.
False. False.
Yeah, and Teresa says false as well. Yeah, I would say it's false. You don't need to own a space. There are a myriad of solutions to this. But one to introduce is the idea that you can actually hire a space. So you can see on the slide in front of you, this is a cycle hoop cycling facility. These are normally installed by the local authority. And you can hire a space. Sometimes there's a charge. It's normally very small. Very often there isn't a charge. But also what's really great about these is I think they have room for 6 bikes, and they take up the space of 1 car parking space. And you can request them. So if you if you had looked into your local area and you found out that there wasn't any secure storage for a bike, and you knew that you really wanted to keep a bike locked up overnight, I do understand that, not having your bike locked out on the road overnight, because thefts do happen. A good tip is if you tweet your local council, and if you get other people who are interested as well to also join in, and if you copy in your local councillors, it's just a really good way of kind of like encouraging people to recognise that it's a really positive thing. But again, if you just inquire in your local area, you might find that there are already existing facilities. I know they can be often oversubscribed, and so that's why it's good to know that you can actually ask them to build a new one, and there are new ones popping up all the time. Okay, let's go to the next slide. True or false? Joe Biden's cycling is a potential security risk because he insists on cycling for 10 kilometers around Washington, DC every morning before work. Is that true or is it false?
False.
False. It's a good guess. It is false. He actually, it is a security risk, but he uses a Peloton exercise bike, which you may or may not know has a Zoom connection to an exercise class. So you're being filmed on camera. So it's a cybersecurity risk. Apparently it was a real headache when he moved into the White House, how he could safely attend his Peloton cycle classes. Are there any more questions? Oh yeah, there's a couple more. True or false? You will not be legally classed as a cyclist by the police unless you own at least 6 pieces of lycra. Is it true or is it false? Tracy says it's false. It's actually, it is false. Yeah, of course, this is a bit of a facetious slide, but the point is, some people are really put off of cycling because they think, you know, you have to have everything, the lycra, the Gore-Tex, and they think it's not for them. But of course, as long as you feel that you're cycling safely, not just that you feel that you're cycling safely, as long as you are, you can actually cycle in your normal clothes. We could probably all ride a bike wearing what we're wearing right now. Most of you got your cameras turned off, so I'm taking a bit of a risk in saying that. I assume none of you are wearing wedding dresses or anything like that right now, though. There's some really good Instagram inspiration. I really like Cycle Sisters UK. I trained with Kandisha as a cycling instructor, and she's written some fantastic blogs under Cycle and Jam all about how to cycle in modest clothing. So it's brilliant for Muslim women. She can just show you really simple tips on how to use a bike safely, but still be wearing complete modest clothing. And the Bikey Girl Bloomers is just a bit of fun. She makes these amazing like bloomer style cycling shorts that you can put on underneath a skirt if you don't want to flash your knickers. Cuter commuter and discerning cyclist. I think it's really important to feel like you can be stylish on your bike, and that you can just wear your normal clothes and make cycling a really easy part of your routine. Okay, next question. Disabled people are advised not to cycle. Is that true or is that false?
False.
False. It is absolutely false. Thank you so much, Kate. In fact, for many disabled people, a bicycle or a tricycle or any type of cycle can be a fantastic mobility aid. Of course, it does sometimes require slightly different cycling habits. For example, not everybody can jump off of their bike so easily and just lift it up over some steps or over an obstruction. I've written here, some cyclists can't cycle on a camber. You know how a road has a camber to make all the rain wash away. So some cyclists have to cycle in the centre of the road. And so I put this point in a little bit like the lycra as well, to make you aware that if you are disabled, that you might want to consider cycling, because it can be a really brilliant mobility assistance. But also we all need to be aware that not everybody can wear lycra when they go out on a bike. It doesn't fit everybody's lifestyle, and in the same way, not all disabilities are visible. So you might see a cyclist doing something that you think's not quite right, like they might be cycling on a pavement or something like that, but if they're not being unsafe, it's worth holding back because perhaps it's not so easy for them to jump on and jump off. Maybe there's a reason that people are using cycles in a different way to what you would expect. I've worked with a wonderful organisation called Wheels for Wellbeing, and I know that they've encountered problems sometimes with disabled cyclists cycling down high streets where cycles are allowed, but then people will stop them and tell them that cycles aren't allowed there incorrectly, and it can be really, really off-putting for people. So it's yeah, just a reminder that sometimes you might see someone using the cycle in a way that you didn't expect, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing something wrong. And the more kind of positive support we can create, then the more people will feel like they can use their cycles. True or false? Magic medicine doesn't exist. Don't hold back, guys. You won't be penalised if you get any of these. False. Hang on. I've phrased this question so weirdly, I can't work out if it is true or false. Magic doesn't exist. False. It is false. Of course it's false. As we've just looked at, active travel as a whole is genuinely so good for you, not just because it reduces your own chances of illness, but also reducing air pollution, which is an absolutely huge killer in London. It kills 9,500 people annually every year experience premature death because of air pollution. And so cycling as a way of being active, it's the regularity of it. It's really building into your routine, which it seems like so many of you have, which is so fantastic. It's just such a great way to keep fit. And it also helps us make a nice environment for everyone. So please add up your scores, write them down, and then take that piece of paper you've written it down on and throw it in the bin because nobody is testing you. Okay, now we're going to go on to a cryptic round. Some of you are cyclists, so you might know this already. Who can spell bicycle using only one letter? It's a trick question, obviously, but does anybody know what I'm referring to? I'll be interested. Don't get Ellen, was don't get it, was that relating to the magic medicine, or is that relating to the current question, spell bicycle using only one letter? The magic. Oh, to be honest, it's something that I've taken from the magic medicine idea is something that we've taken from the cycling community. A man called Peter Walker writes a lot about active travel and cycling, and it's just I think his most recent book might be called The Magic Pill or Magic Medicine, something very similar to that. And it's just this idea of active travel. It's just so good for people, and at the moment we are very sedentary. I don't just mean because of the lockdown, I mean in general our lifestyles are very sedentary, and so it's just a kind of like popular term for active travel. Okay, no one's guessed it. I'll tell you the letter is M. And this is because of an M check. So I don't know if any of you have come across an M check before. If you did have some cycling lessons with an instructor, I'm sure they'd mention it. It's just a really good maintenance check that you can do on your bike, particularly if you haven't used your bike in a little while. So if it's been a week or a month, it's a good idea just to start with an M. So you start on the axle of your rear wheel, and then you just check your gears, check your chain, come up and check your saddle, then you go back and check your pedal and your crankshaft, come up and check your handlebars, and then come down and check your front wheel. So it's just quite an easy way to just make sure you've checked that everything is working on your bike. Another simple kind of bike check that you can do more regularly, maybe every time you go out on your bike, is the next one, which is the ABCD check. Does anybody know what ABCD stands for? And you can guess just one of them. ABCD. Brakes, I have to think. But yes, yeah, brakes, chain, brilliant. That is brilliant, Ross and Emily, brakes and chain. And A, something that you have to attend to quite regularly on a bike. It's a tricky one because it's to do with the tyres. Air, yeah, that's it. So it's air, brakes, chain, and D is for direction. So just making sure that your tyres are nicely pumped, making sure that your brakes work. So check the front, check the back, and then check them both together at the same time. Chain, you're really just looking to make sure it's not rusty. You want your chain to look really silver or nice and black. What you want not to see is any orangey rust, just making sure that it's lined up on your bike nicely and moving around quite smoothly, nothing's caught in it. Direction is such a useful one to check. I've been caught out by this so many times on a bike, especially in my bike shed. We have to hang our bikes up, and it's actually really easy to knock your handlebars so they're not quite in line with the front wheel. And it is the strangest experience if you're cycling a bike, because sometimes it's not perceptible to the eye, but you'll just notice that your steering is a bit off. So what you can do is you stand in front of your bike, put your bike wheel between your legs, and then just check that your handlebars aren't wiggling. And then you know that your direction of your bike is good. And that is a check that is just really handy to make sure nothing's skew with your bike. Okay, next slide, please. Oh yeah, now I tell you the winner of the quiz. Good news, it's all of you. You have won a job working for the copywriters for famous London Agony aunts, Tina Thames and Linda London. In a moment, you will be put in a breakout room with the rest of your writers team. Please answer the following questions with as many solutions as possible. The most solutions win. Let me just check with you, Jenny. Should we go ahead and do the breakout room? Are we good with time and everything like that?
We are a little tight on time.
Okay.
Thinking, so we've got 5 participants. We could just do it all in one room if you think that would work.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy with that. Definitely.
Great.
Oh, no more problem, Teresa. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, so yeah, we'll go into the next page and let's have a look at the questions. So this is obviously another bit of fun, but I really wanted to just have a bit of a discussion, and this is also an opportunity for questions as well about cycling. So I phrased it as agony aunt questions. If you would like to read the slide in front of you, I'll read the first one out and then we will brainstorm some answers. So, dear Tina Thames, I want to cycle to work, but I work in zone 2 and live in zone 379. Is there any way I can incorporate a bit of cycling into my routine? Yours sincerely, Sam Suburbs. So does anybody have any ideas? What could we suggest to Sam Suburbs as a way of getting some cycling in, even if they work in the centre of London and live way out in the suburbs? Yeah,
they could get a fold-up bike and do part of the way at least.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's 2 solutions in one, Ross, because they could get a fold-up bike and take it on the train, or you can do it part of the way. Sometimes when I move to a new area and I'm looking for somewhere to park my bike, train stations are such a great place to start because they often have fantastic parking. So even just cycling to the station or using a Santander bike when you arrive in town can be great solutions. I did a research trip to the Netherlands for a project I was running in Croydon. And what really impressed me there was, instead of talking about using cycling as an alternative to cars, they talked about using cycling as an alternative to walking. So instead of walking to the train station, you could cycle to the train station. And this is such a good technique because cycling is so quick and so convenient that people are, you know, some people are really committed to driving their car and they don't like the idea of giving up driving, but they might be more persuadable to give up the idea of walking. And so it can be a great way to introduce people to cycling. So that was 2 good solutions in one. And Emily's put the same solution as well, cycle to a train station. It's so good to just combine a little bit of active travel wherever you can. I'm just thinking if there's any other suggestions that we've mixed. I guess as well, if you did live in the suburbs, you don't, I mean, I know this is an active travel workshop, but you can, of course, you know, cycle for leisure and try to get active travel into your leisure time. Maybe you can't cycle to work, maybe that's not workable for you, but maybe you go regularly to a club, or you could cycle to the pub. Just be careful cycling home though. Okay, question number 2. Dear Linda London, I'm a hipster and I desperately want to get a cycle to complement my moustache and pork pie hair. The only problem is I currently live in a rented hat box in Angel with 17 art students. How can I make a cycle work with so little space? Yours, Cordy Loafer. So what would you do? What would you recommend to someone who didn't have any room at home to store a bike?
Ask the council for one of those storage lockers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great solution. Also, I think, because obviously I can imagine people being put off a little bit about the length of time that you might have to wait for something like that. So there are other things you could do. I remember I just found a place where I could safely lock my bike overnight behind a hedge. I know that sounds like a bit of a dodgy solution, but it was only a cheap bike. I tend to only buy really cheap bikes in London because I have had a few stolen. So you can kind of balance up the value of your bike with where you're securing it. You can see if you're allowed to keep your bike at work or near work. Brompton bikes or foldable bikes are a fantastic solution. Or even just using the rented bikes like the great Santander bikes, and you've also got the Line bikes, different hireable bikes. And there are some different organisations that have storage facilities. And again, train stations, like at Finsbury Park, they've got a proper cycle storage unit. When I lived in Walthamstow, I used to keep my bike in the cycle locker right by the station. So there are different solutions you can find. Okay, the last one is a little bit controversial. I deliberately picked a controversial question because I wanted a debate. Dear Tina Thames, my colleague cycles to work but doesn't dress properly for it. She doesn't wear a helmet or leggings and her dresses seem too bulky and too long to be safe to me. She says she feels safe not wearing a helmet because the cycle lane goes door to door from her home to work. And she says she wouldn't cycle if she had to wear a helmet and leggings. It's her birthday coming up, so I want to get her some safety gear. What could I get? And should I confront her about the helmet and leggings? What do people think? It's a tricky one, isn't it?
I would probably say, I think Emily's actually just put roughly what I was going to say, is that I'm not sure I would comment on the way someone dresses, but the safety element of a helmet is probably worth talking about, I'd say.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Ross and Emily. Yeah, that two similar answers. And I think that's probably where a lot of people would fall. I deliberately picked a slightly controversial position for this because it is a debate, and amongst people who cycle regularly, there's some people, I think the majority of people are very pro helmets and feel, you know, everybody who cycles should wear a helmet. But some people say the focus should be on the infrastructure, which is why I mentioned the cycle lane, because there's this idea that we should also make the roads safer and not depend on cyclists dressing themselves up in, you know, polystyrene helmets and lights and everything like this just to feel safe on the roads. I do personally always choose to wear a helmet. I like it as well because my one's got lights in it, so it makes me more visible. And so I can definitely see, and I see a lot of people in the group are very keen about the helmet aspect and just getting her to wear a helmet. But also, again, when I've gone over to the Netherlands and collaborated there are a lot of people who don't wear helmets in the Netherlands, but that is largely because their cycle infrastructure is just so much better. So I think I personally agree with you about the helmet. And like you say, with the leggings, it's a bit more of a personal choice, isn't it? I've done I've worn many different outfits on a cycle, and I've ruined some really nice dresses by getting them caught or getting oil all over them. But I think the idea that we can really encourage people to feel like cycling is easy and it's something you don't need loads of kit is something that really does involve just doing it in your own clothes and having a bit of more of a casual attitude to it. So yeah, I think I agree. We'll talk her into the helmet, but maybe we will abandon the leggings idea. Okay, well, that is the end of my session. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll be here for the rest of the workshop. So if you have any questions, and if you want to put any questions into the chat or anything like that for me, please do go ahead. But thank you so much for joining in. That was really fun.
Amazing, Vanessa. Thank you so much for that. That was very informative. So just very quickly, in terms of if any of you are employers or want to talk to your employer about how they could support your kind of cycling and active travel ambitions, just a few things that we think employers can do. So that would be kind of sharing information. So whether that's sharing kind of information on safe and low air pollution travel routes, or help running kind of workshops like this, or kind of bike maintenance workshops, sharing kind of resources and things like that. Making it an easier choice to staff by offering kind of flexible working so they can kind of avoid rush hour and things like that. Obviously kind of providing facilities on site like showers or changing rooms even, and kind of secure cycle parking, but they can also kind of team up with other businesses locally as well if they haven't got kind of the space to offer secure parking themselves. So lots of businesses kind of do that. The other thing is that they can provide kind of financial incentives and other incentives. So for example, you can actually get a kind of mileage rate for cycling. So kind of the maximum kind of tax-free amount available for cycle mileage is about 20p per mile, which doesn't sound like much, but if you're kind of cycling to and from the office every day, you know, it can kind of slowly rack up. They can offer, you know, things like a cycle incentive for kind of a certain day or a certain day of the month, maybe offer a kind of a breakfast and things to welcome cyclists. They can support with kind of bike loan schemes, and kind of look into kind of things like the Love to Ride cycling challenge, which offers kind of lots of kind of giveaways and things like that on a regular basis. They could support things like having a buddy bike system, which is really great, and then kind of things like the senior leadership team, kind of making, like, leading by example basically is a really great way to kind of show people that you're really invested in cycling and you think it's a great idea, and that yeah, to kind of lead the way basically for the rest of the staff. So I'm going to pass on to Suzanne for some more kind of resources and things that you can help you get onto your active travel journey.
Thanks Jenny and Vanessa for your really engaging cycling workshops. So I just wanted to highlight some really key resources, and all of these resources will be on the e-leaflet we send you, so you can spend some time when you have a bit of time to just go through them all. One really key one is the Clean Air Route Finder, and I'm trying to think if I can go through it quickly. I might quickly share my screen, Jenny, just to show it. So Cross River Partnerships have developed a Clean Air Route Finder, which is a really useful tool that you can find online. So I've just quickly shared my screen and showed you my local area. The Clean Air Route Finder, the link is on the leaflet, but also just Google Clean Air Route Finder Cross River Partnerships and this will come up. So this is just an example in my local area. So if you choose, you know, a starting point and your destination, it's a bit like Google Maps, although, so it shows you the time it takes and how far the distance is, but it also shows you the pollution level you'll be exposed to depending on what route you take. So as you can see, the red is the highest pollution, and this is actually through the South Circular, and it's a really polluted and trafficy road. But then it also shows you the lowest level of pollution you'll be exposed to, and the route for it, which is normally through parks and, you know, downside streets. And as you can see on here, the lowest pollution level is almost 20% lower exposure than if you were to take, you know, maybe the highest one would have been your normal route, but now you've looked it up on the Clean Air Route Finder, you can change your route slightly. So this is a really, really great tool. I recommend everyone going on, and even if it's just walking to a local shop, to see what is the cleanest route and safest route to take. I'll stop sharing that, but yeah, I really encourage everyone to go on and have a look at the Clean Air Route Finder. But there's also the Cycle to Work scheme. So if your workplace sign up to the Cycle to Work scheme, your employer registers for it, and then you can choose a bike and slowly start paying back your employer through your monthly paychecks. So you don't have to cough up, you know, hundreds of pounds straight away for a new bike, or a couple of £100. You can buy a bike through your employer, and it actually ends up being 32% less than if you were just buying your bike through a shop directly, because you pay back your employer before tax. So it's a sort of a tax-free incentive of buying a bike. And as Vanessa said, there's the cycle skills, there's the one-on-one cycling sessions and support that you can have. And then all the bottom resources, these are all on the leaflet, and all the bottom resources are from Cross River Partnerships on their website, and there's amazing amounts of resources you can get via their website. So just to summarize before we leave you all, in summary, what is active travel? Active travel means getting from A to B using your own energy, whether that's by walking, jogging, cycling, wheeling, or even rollerblading. Why? Why do it? It's good for your health, the health of others in your community, and your wallet, and it's proven to help businesses and increase footfall. And how? I mean, use all those resources out there that we've shown you and that we'll share with you through the e-leaflet. Just take small steps. You don't have to, you know, if it's all about gaining confidence. And like Vanessa said, maybe cycle instead of walk somewhere. I think that's a really great tip. And yeah, speak to your workplace about how they can support you. And finally is make a pledge. Great.
So finally, just before you leave us, we would love it if you could just write a quick pledge in the chat box, or come off mute and tell us what you think you would like to pledge. But basically, it's just a kind of idea that would help you kind of make a start, give you a bit of motivation, and maybe start kind of forming cycling and active travel as a kind of regular habit. So here's some ideas on the slide here of what that could be, but it could just be a really small start. It might just be getting your bike out of the shed, giving it a dust off, or having a look at kind of your local availability of cycling sessions or hiring schemes and things like that. So maybe just a pledge of like what your first step might be, just to kind of encourage yourself as well. But yeah, if you could write it in the chat box or come off mute and just let us know what that might be. So Kate has shared hers, and she says, I pledge to learn about bike maintenance as I'm not very good at this at present. Yeah, me neither. Any other ideas? I think mine would just be to make sure my tires are pumped up. I don't think I've really used my bike much over the winter at all. That's a really nice idea from Vanessa, to do some more of her walking routes as cycling, and get into some regular cycling routes and try to do them once a week. Emily said, I pledge to get more confident with the maintenance too. Sometimes I'm worried about going too far from home. It's a really good point. If you can kind of get more confident with the maintenance, then you feel like you can actually get a bit further. And Ross has said, I pledge to cycle more frequently, once a week, particularly when walking is too far. Which is great. Thank you so much for those. Does anyone have any final questions before we finish off? Questions for me or Stan or Vanessa either as well?
One thing that I would just say about maintenance is cycle shops are open for maintenance at the moment. This, I mean, they might not be up for this in lockdown conditions, but what can be quite a good idea is if you build up a relationship with your local cycling shop. I tend to fix my own bike outside my cycle shop, so they're there and they're on hand and they can guide me. They also lend me their tools and their equipment, but I do it myself because I know what you mean. It's so nerve-wracking, isn't it, the idea of getting a puncture when you're out and about. And so just practicing doing it at the shop rather than just kind of handing over my bike and then getting it back and not really knowing what they've done can be a really nice way to build up your skills with a bit of support.
That sounds great. Thanks, Vanessa. Well, if there's no more questions from anyone, then thank you so much for joining us. It was a great workshop, and thank you again to Vanessa. That was really great.